This is the talkSPORT Daily Podcast Takeover. I'm your host, Flex, and over the next few weeks, we're going to be celebrating the influence of black culture on football and sports in general. We're taking a look at where it all began, how it's grown, and how it's changed the whole energy of the game, from the vibes in the dressing room right through to the fashion choices we see every single day. Football isn't just about what happens on the pitch, it's about the culture that drives it. Alongside me today is former Premier League striker Darren Bent, and of course we're welcoming him in as well, sports fashion writer live from New York, Daniel Yaw-Miller. We got a great cast today. How you doing, Daniel? You good?
I'm good, thanks, man. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to this.
No problem, man. We need your expertise on this, and of course we've got Benty as well. You know, he's been around the block a few times, you know what I mean? Actually, you know what? Let's start from the early days, Daz, yeah?
Yeah.
Influences, idols, when you first started playing football, way before you was pro, who were your early influences?
I think a lot of my influences, I mean, listen, I know we're talking about football, but Ian Wright was a big one in terms of on the pitch. But you know, a lot of my influences in terms of culture came probably from MTV. So MTV Base was one of them. When I think about it, when I used to come home from school, put the TV on, in terms of fashion, culture, music, I think it was MTV Base where a lot of my early kind of likes and things where I got into probably started from that. And then of course you fast forward and you move to people like Ian Wright, but that's certainly more on the pitch. But yeah, man, that was it. Coming home, if I saw someone wearing a particular jumper, obviously I couldn't afford the same jumper, so it was one of those, can I find the one that was similar, that looked quite kind of similar. But yeah, man, just watching, like seeing black people on TV and the way that they were successful probably was the early influences in my life.
Do you see what we've stumbled on here, yeah, which is beautiful straight away? Daniel, I want to bring you in this, right? Is what Darren's basically alluded to straight away, right? Is like the musical influence, like the cultural influence away from football, from even back like early millennium, right? Let's say 01, 02, late 90s, etc. Daniel, like, he's talking about MTV Base. Do you know what I mean? That's the musical side of things that transpired into football, into sports as we know it now. Like, talk to us about how important those two things are, how intertwined they actually are.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I feel like music has had such a big impact over the years on sports culture, and also like the culture that's adjacent to sport, like in terms of fashion and style, and like I can really resonate with what Darren's saying, because when I was growing up, and like obviously the UK and European football game that doesn't necessarily have like natural like touch points to fashion and things like that, but I would always look to like the NBA and basketball, and again, like that culture is so tied up in like hip hop and R&B and that kind of thing, and those styles of dressing. So I really do feel like you get so many influences from music from different cultures that kind of like can lead you into like looking at football in a different way.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, for me, like the music side of it for me is actually what comes first.
Yeah.
Seriously, like obviously we're going to talk about football, about how it came into the game, but like black music is what obviously I grew up on. I was a DJ when from very, very young. From like 11, 12 years old, I picked up my first pair of 1210s and started DJing from old school garage. So you're talking about like, then there's the British culture. So like in the old school garage guys, they're wearing TN hats, they're wearing Air Maxes, they're wearing like TN trainers, they're wearing the Nike tracksuits. And I'm like, well, I'm going to school, I want to do that. But then the American thing, like you said, I'd get back from school, I'd leave MTV Base on record and then get back in and watch all the videos. So when I see like Nelly wearing like a little eye patch or upside down Nike bandana, sweatband, I'm trying to wear that with the New Era hat.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? I'm trying to wear the Timbs.
Yeah.
I'm trying to wear the throwback majestic jerseys. Like that it starts from there.
Do you know what? Because I was kind of a little bit before that. I'm still a little bit older than you. But so like my in terms of fashion and music, I remember going way back and wearing like the Wu-Tang gear.
Oh, Wu-Tang,
when they first came out with their clothing, and then you had FUBU,
Sean
big
John,
one. Academics,
Fat Farm, academic
Academics
tracksuits with the characters on it, the cartoon characters.
Exactly. So I used to go to a shop, and certainly when it was in London, there used to be a shop on, I think it was on Roman Road, East London. So, and they used to sell little bits and bobs of like the Academics, and as you said, certain I used to go, okay, the FUBU, you sell FUBU in here, the Academics. So I do think that the crossover is kind of massive. And when you're going to fast forward to English culture and you start talking about the TNs now, kind of anyone who knows me growing up, like I remember when I would think was at Ipswich, and again we'll probably get to that, but when I saw the TNs, I had to have them in every colour, and that was like, I remember my dad, like I think it was my 15th or 16th birthday, buying me two colourways, like the black and gold, the original like sky blue with the silver. Like TNs for me growing up was a huge part, of course, of why I started collecting trainers. But that culture, like, and then I brought that into the dressing room and youth team, and other people now were like, D, where'd you get them trainers from?
Yeah.
So
And then it spreads from there.
It spreads from there.
Daniel, we're going to get into the more football side of it, but again, what's brilliant here is just like the cultural impact of everything before, like as black people first, before it gets into the sport or the admiration, even if you're not black, just the admiration of that hip hop culture or that reggae culture. Because I haven't even spoke about my Caribbean influence from reggae and dancehall, and because that's another thing. And there's all these different fusions of black culture that then eventually make it into sport, and in this case, football.
For sure. And I feel like we're going to come on to this, but I was going to say that I really feel like this era that you guys are referencing was like the golden era of all these things. And like now when you look at like what the brands are trying to do in terms of like what shoes they're going to bring back, like how big of a moment like TNs are having, or like in the past years, like how crazy like Air Maxes have been and Dunks and all these things. I feel like they're just referencing all these different like cultural moments that started organically, these products, these brands, these ways of dressing and speaking and the types of music that were really begun from black communities, like either in the UK, in Paris, in the US, places like that.
100%.
Just quite funny though as well. I have kids that come up to me and they'll go, "Oh, have you seen the new TNs?" I'm like, "Listen to me. I was wearing TNs way back late 90s. I was wearing TNs," and he's like, "Oh, have you seen the TN trainers?" I'm like, "Listen, you're not witnessing anything new. It's just a cultural cycle."
100%.
Like, I was wearing them late 90s, the TNs. I can show you colourways. My dad's probably got pictures of the old TNs I used to wear. But they're like, "Oh no, but the hats." I'm like, "Listen, there's nothing you can tell me now that's new. Like, we've seen it before."
We're sounding proper old, and you know, we're not trying to sound like nostalgia merchants, but it's true what they say, man. Like the old school is the best school.
Yeah.
Like it really is. Let's bring it into football now, and some of your early experiences of being pro, and some of the first dressing rooms you were in, Daz. Like, firstly, like, what's some of your early memories of like adult pro football as a young black male making it?
Well, do you know what? So my upbringing was different because I grew up in London, South London, and then when my parents split, I went with my mum to Cambridgeshire. Now, anyone who's been to Cambridgeshire, it's completely different to South London.
Just a little bit.
In terms of culture, but what I can say about moving to Cambridgeshire in Huntingdon was that I never experienced racism, and I thought I would do, but I didn't, and it was a brilliant place for me to grow up. But certainly in the South London aspect, growing up in Thornton Heath, Croydon, watching football, Ian Wright was my first hero. But then at the end of my road was a guy called Bruce Dyer. Do you remember him? Played for Barnsley, played for Palace.
Bruce Dyer.
And he was the first kind of footballer I managed to speak to, like face to face. Like, I remember saying, "Oh my goodness, Bruce Dyer's getting into his house," and he spent 5-10 minutes with me talking to me. He was like, "Can you watch my car for me? Make sure no one takes my car." He was cool. And then I remember where I used to get my hair cut in Garrett Lane in Wandsworth. My dad was like, "Listen, there's a footballer back there. I've asked if it's okay if you go in there and speak to him," and he said, "Yeah," and it was Clinton Morrison. So
Really? So even Uncle Clint was like before you, like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So Clinton Morrison was in the back of the barbershop. He's like, "Yeah, come in." I remember him speaking to me about don't give up, keep working hard. This is before I turned pro.
I was gonna say what you would have 17?
No, because I was in the first team at 17, so it would have been I would have been about 13, 14, and like going to speak to him, and he gave me words of advice. So I'd say that those three. Like, Ian Wright was my hero, and he remains that way. But Clinton Morrison and Bruce Dyer were the first kind of black footballers that I met, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, these guys are successful and they're on TV." So that had a big impact on me.
What about boots? Like your first set of boots, like that you remember wearing?
John Fashion Quasar. People they probably won't remember what they are, man.
Old school.
John Fashion Quasar. My dad bought me, and I remember looking at them thinking, "Oh my goodness, these are the best boots I've ever had in my life." Like John Fashion, old school Wimbledon, like legend.
Yeah.
They were the first ones where I wore them and thought, "Ooh, yeah, these are proper."
That is insane. Daniel, for you, like, what's some of your early experiences of, you know, getting into fashion, or whether it be sport, but from the culture? Like, what is some of your earliest memories, man?
Yeah, for me, I really like came from sports and then got into fashion later. But I was always growing up, like, played loads of different sports, like football, tennis, all different things. But like my interest in sport, like as well as obviously like I grew up a big Arsenal fan, but as well as like supporting the team and whatever, like worrying about what happens on the pitch, I was always interested in, like, I was always curious about like why certain teams would wear jerseys with like a Nike swoosh, or some would wear like with jerseys with like Adidas logo. And I would always wonder why, like, oh, why is Thierry Henry, like, why did he start out wearing Nikes? Like, why did he then go to Reebok? That kind of thing. And I always like had that kind of curiosity about like not only like what happens on the pitch, but like all these different things that kind of like make up like the look and feel of football and how we interact with it. And I kind of always had these like curiosities, and that led me to like writing more and more about this intersection between like sports and fashion. And at the time, like it was a thing that like I think like a few people individually dotted around like were interested in, but it was nothing like today where it's like such a massive thing that people understand a bit more about like how style influences football.
Yeah.
And I really feel like it was that growing up in the 2000s, early 2000s, and like just I think like growing up in the golden era, or one of the golden eras of like the aesthetic of football. So just like with like boot franchises like F50, Predator, T90,
Mercurial
like
Vapors.
yeah, exactly. Like all of those things. And I feel like when we look at what brands are trying to do now, like all they're trying to do is bring back those grails because they know how big of an impact it had on the culture. So I really think like growing up in that time around all those incredible things, really like led me to appreciate like sports, but from a style perspective.
Yeah.
Do you know what's mad as well? Because I do think as a young kid, you what you see on TV obviously has an impact on you, right? And a lot of kind of the black heroes of mine growing up wore Nike. So that's why I always wanted to wear Nike.
Yeah, because it was in Tiempos, isn't it?
Right, it was Tiempos. Then you go to R9 was obviously Mercurial Vapor. So
Morrison was in Vapors as well, I remember.
I think so a lot of my kind of heroes wore Nike. So I think as a cultural perspective, I wasn't going to wear any other boot. I wasn't going to wear Adidas because at the time, growing up, Adidas was Beckham.
Yeah.
Now, listen, I love Becks. What a player he was, and obviously he kind of invested in black culture as well. He was quite big in it as well. But my heroes wearing Nike. When people said, "What boots you want to wear?" Well, I want to wear Nike.
100%.
Because Wright is wearing Nike.
100%. I mean, look, listen, I'm a Man United fan. Everybody knows that, right? But I feel like there's this unwritten rule, especially in black culture, that Thierry Henry is like your icon. Like he's your idol. Like it doesn't like maybe Spurs fans might disagree and say he ain't mine. You know what I mean? Like black Spurs fans might be like, no. But I feel like there's an understanding amongst black culture that what Thierry Henry was doing when he got to Arsenal with high socks above the knees, Mercurial Vapors, in the league, wearing gloves, almost like feels like he was wearing gloves at all times. He had me in playgrounds like putting on gloves when it was hot. Do you know what I mean? Wearing Vapors when I'm not fast. Do you know what I mean? Putting socks over my knees like I got a swag and like I got skills and that. I ain't got none of that. I just want to look like him. I want to play like him. That arrogance. And for me, as a young aspiring footballer, we will kind of start off like that before many of us realize it ain't gonna be like I take so much from him, and then if I go before that, my early influences were people like Andrew Cole.
He was Reebok, wasn't he?
He was Reebok. And it wasn't necessarily because I wanted to wear the Reeboks. It was because that was like one of the first black players that I saw like at a high level, and he played for my team. You know what I mean? And I saw when he moved from Newcastle to Man United, and I went, oh, okay.
It's a big thing. It's a big deal. That
what's going on here? And then of course R9. So the first boots I got were not even the Vapors. They were the Nike Mercurial Match, the ones with the small Nike tick on the back first. Yeah. And that's before the Vapors came. Probably about 2099, because I didn't really. And back when I was young, I just used to have like the Pumas, Puma Kings, in like green, Martin Keown's in like green, red. I think some of the African players used to have like the red ones, the green ones, the yellow ones. They
had the speed boot, didn't they? Yeah. After the Etu and then man had the speed boot.
Evo Speed.
Yes, the Evo Speed boot.
So there's a lot going on, man. I mean, for you, Darren, in the early memories in terms of how players dress, then let's bring it to like the fashion and the culture. What we see it now, and we'll bring it to the present day. But back then, was there that big push from black players in particular to really push their boundaries? Was there that confidence? Was it accepted? Was it a thing?
Well, you know what? When I think back to it now, I don't remember too many black players kind of pushing the boundaries. Now, I think maybe that's a different time. And maybe the acceptance now is we expect it because you see the guys, and social media is a big part of that, I think, big part of culture now. So I think the biggest acceptance is that, these guys can do that, and fair play to them. I love the fact that these young black guys, now not just the black kids, are expressing themselves. I love that. But back then, because of the acceptance part, and it was all football or nothing, and it was an old school mentality, I don't really remember. Now, I know it probably was a thing, but I don't remember focusing, say again, I go back to Ian Wright. I don't remember him wearing outfits. Now, I remember him riding the motorbike and being like, wow. But in terms of a fashion sense, I don't remember him being too out there and me thinking, wow, he's getting away with this. Whereas you fast forward it today, like I've got young kids, when they look at the likes of the Rashfords, the Sanchos, the Ezes, they're looking at their culture and going, oh my goodness, the acceptance that they can wear the 15 chains, the Louis Vuitton headband.
Was you on that? The St. Maximum special.
Yeah, all that stuff.
So what, would you, when it comes to like all designer and like dripping in chains and and Rolexes
Yeah, of course,
and things like what was you loud like that? Was you trying to do
I had that. I mean, to a point, yes.
Was it accepted, or did you feel like some of the like pros from like different backgrounds, different cultures would say to you, hang on, Darren, or some of your managers maybe, like what was the perception like, and how was that received when you know what I mean, you got your first paycheck, or all right, son, calm yourself down?
Do you know what, there was probably an element to that, but because I was scoring a lot of goals and playing well, they probably at the back of their minds were thinking, he shouldn't really be doing that. But because the ball was going in the net, like I remember the first big car I bought was when I got to Charlton. I'd been at Charlton for 6 months, and I bought the Aston Martin, right? And people probably thought,
at what age?
I was 21 or something, 22. And I'm pretty sure Alan Kirby probably wouldn't say to me, Benty, like, but because by then I'd scoring goals, I was international, England international, he probably couldn't.
Yeah.
So I probably waited to a certain point before I did that. But there have been, I know he told me stories of other players that had Bentleys before him, and he thought, no, like, why are you doing that? You're not playing well, so why are you driving the Bentley? So I think as long as I was backing it up on the pitch, no one could really say anything.
It's fine.
Whereas I think nowadays it's frowned upon a little bit more because you're like, well, hold on, why are you're not playing well?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Daniel, you see that link that Bentley's talking about there about basically how the on-field performance is basically linked to the level of expression you can or can't have. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I do see that a lot. Like, basically the equation is play well, wear what you want, do what you want, nobody can talk to you. Play badly or get bad results, don't go out, don't wear change, don't go to that concert, don't express yourself.
Yeah, I can resonate with that so much, and it's something that you see all the time. And I think it's very much like a European sports thing. Because in the US, I feel like you can flex, you can wear whatever you want in the tunnel, you can drive whatever car you want, and like people don't link that to your like to how you perform on the pitch or on the court or whatever. And I find that really interesting. But like I think that attitude is still like very pervasive in football today, because I think like going back maybe like 1 or 2 years, it was Serge Gnabry at Bayern by that point, and I think he was injured or had like a couple days off, and he took the train to Paris to go to a Paris Fashion Week show, like not to walk in or anything, just as a guest. And I think like some Bayern Munich fans found out or whatever, and he got ripped, and like he got ripped by his manager, like someone else from Bayern Munich, and like the fans were going crazy, and it's just like, because he was like maybe like not in the best form, or maybe he was injured, I can't remember, but like people were on his back, and it's just interesting because like I mean the guy's got 2 days off, he can really like do what he wants with it. It's not like a strenuous thing to go to a fashion show, but like people were not happy about the fact that like maybe he wasn't performing on the pitch, or maybe he was injured, and there's still very much a big perception, I think, both from within football but also like fans, that like if you as a player are not like training or at a game, like you should be keeping your head down. But I think like recent years have proved like players can do both. Like I mean someone like Jules Koundé, again, like I guess a sign of someone who's performing well on the pitch but also like wants to flex in different ways off it. But yeah, definitely there's still in football a sense that like you have to back whatever you're doing up with performances on the pitch if you don't want to take criticism from certain people.
Daniel, it's crazy because when you talk about American sports, I almost feel like when an American sports star, NFL, NBA, gets a new contract, it's almost celebrated by the supporters. Whereas over here with football, it's completely different. When a player signs a huge contract, people want to be skeptical first rather than celebrate that player. Have you noticed that change, that difference?
100%. And like I notice it in football, and I always think that there's like a different narrative around like black players as well. I mean, I think in like even just now, like in the transfer window just gone, like the amount of pressure heaped on someone like Alexander Isak to like hit the ground running at Liverpool after a big move and all of that, like it's just, I think in football for some reason, especially like football in Europe and the UK, there's like a different layer of maybe like negativity and pressure that you put on people. But like you say, an NBA player signs like a crazy extension, like 50-60 million, and everyone's like going crazy, everyone's celebrating. And yeah, I think it's just a different atmosphere around football, and that's all tied up as well in like how players express themselves and like the perceptions of certain different types of player as well.
I think this is a really important part of what we're doing today, yeah, and that's to talk about like the scrutiny upon black players' expression. So and sort of, I feel like the British culture, just whether it's black, white, English, Asian, doesn't matter, British culture kind of teaches us this. We don't really like braggadocious people. Yeah. We don't like people puffing out their chests and saying, I'm it. Yeah. And I feel like across the pond in the States,
they love it. They celebrate it.
It's celebrated. And then when you look at, I think, in black culture, sometimes I feel like there's this, I don't know, like a microaggression against like some black players about the way they express themselves versus our white counterparts. So you know, I've seen players sort of maybe go to the darts and be, you know, singing, it's great. And it's like, oh, look at that. He's won, it's brilliant. You know, I've seen, you know, Jack Grealish sort of, listen, after winning, I get that. Sometimes not. Sort of, you know, Jack the lad, it's all right and stuff. But then I've seen like a young Miles Lewis-Skelly sort of have a go at Haaland. That's kind of met with some criticism there, like, be humble, kid. But then I'm seeing like Jamie Vardy on the come up, like properly winding up people in Neil Mope, and it's like, I like that kind of, oh, he's got a bit of cheek about. So there is sometimes some connotations that definitely exist, in my opinion, that kind of, I don't know, whether people realise they're doing it or not, that like kind of demand or ask for black players to kind of rein it in a little bit, mate. When Pogba's got the blue stripes in his hair, it was from France. It was from France. He come back off international duty into the Manchester derby.
I remember people trying to link his performances to his haircut.
Do you know what I mean? He's got or different cultural things, like Jesse Lingard and Pogba will be in the dressing room dancing. Do you know what I'm saying? They go, oh, look at these clowns. What are they doing? So sometimes that comes from just a lack of understanding and awareness of, like, in black culture, that's how we express ourselves. Whether we've lost the game 3-0, you know, they're just happy to be a footballer.
Yeah, of course.
They're just praising God that they're here, praising God that they can feed their families. And I got a lot to dance about, and I get the perception of that after a loss, this, that, and the other. But I do feel that. Did you sense that going through the different generation that you played in into now, what's your thoughts on that, about the perception of how maybe black players express themselves versus like the professionalism? Because then it has to be ownership as well, Daz. Like, sometimes you think, are you making the best decisions? Like, where do you think? Where do you lie on
that's the thing, because I 100% agree with you when it comes to, like, if a player wants to dance and act the way he wants to act, I've got no problems with that, right? But I think sometimes, where the balance has got to be is that, yes, you could be a certain way, and I think every player should be able to express themselves. But I think you don't forget what got you to that position in the first place. So ultimately, the football comes first, the dedication, the hard work, the performances come first. So if you're winning games and you're playing well, and then there's that side of it, that kind of takes care of itself. What I think is bizarre sometimes, and you're right, you can go out for meals, you can go out to concerts, you can live your life. Like, you don't have to be, if you lose, sit in a room and don't do anything. But I just think when your own personal performances, and we know as players, right, we're proud players, no one wants to put a bad performance in. But when I know myself that I'm not playing well, and I'm not doing anything I can to help my performances get better, but then I'm still acting a certain way, I probably deserve the criticism.
Was you conscious of that then? So if you weren't playing well on a bad spell, 100%. Couldn't hit a barn door,
you wouldn't see me.
You're not going out.
You're not seeing me.
See, I heard Rio say this a lot.
You don't see
me.
I
feel like that's a much of a player's mentality from your era.
Maybe, because honestly, if I wasn't scoring goals, I promise you now, you're not seeing me nowhere. Like, I'm not going to restaurants. I'm not going to concerts. I'm not going to, I don't know, wrestling events.
And that's nothing to do with, like, black culture. That's just your standards.
That's just
my
standards. Like, if I'm scoring goals, I'm everywhere.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But then maybe that is black culture. That I want to be seen, like, I'm going to basketball events. I'm going to every event that's out. If I'm the ball's going in the net, you will see me everywhere.
What about guys you played with? Some of the people, I mean, you played with Asamoah Gyan at Sunderland, Kevin Prince Boateng. We all know how much of an icon he was, how out there he was. Christian Benteke, etc. Like, Esu Akota, did you play with him at Spurs?
I did, yeah.
He's when it comes to trainers, we'll get onto that, but I know he's well into it. Who did you play with that maybe pushed those boundaries, or they didn't give a damn about anything in terms of black players?
Well, Benoit didn't care. Benoit, Esu Akota. But do you know what I'll tell about Benoit? And a lot of sticks been levelled at him about apparently don't care about football, right, and all this, but. He's a trainer collector like I was. He always put a shift in. That's one thing. Anyone who's played with Benoit, he trained properly. And when I say he trained harder than anyone, he'd put his performances in. And he'd have bad games, but full well, come training Monday morning, he's there. Even if he'd been out the night before, because he wasn't a drinker. That's one thing I can remember. He wasn't a drinker. But even if he'd been out the night before with his mates and he got in late, you best believe Monday morning he's putting a shift in again. So you could never throw that at him. Asamoah Gyan as well. Of course, he had that kind of culture.
I remember that celebration.
Yeah, all that. But put the performances in.
Yeah.
Kenwyn Jones the same.
Yeah.
So all the black players that I played with, certainly most of them. There's going to be a couple that I'll probably slip through the cracks, but most of the ones that I played with, Kevin Boateng, I was there with him when he had the crown tattooed on his neck.
Mad. You was there when he actually got that.
I was there with
tattoo.
him. He said to me, "What do you think?" And I'm in the shop with him.
What did you say? Was like, bro, I don't think you should do this, bro.
I said, "No, man. If you like it, get it." And to be fair, we never saw the best of him at Tottenham. He didn't get an opportunity, but went on to play for AC Milan. Was brilliant for Ghana. But these guys would put a shift in. So maybe it's an old school mentality compared to now. But all the guys that I played with, they were so conscious about their performances that you wouldn't see these guys if they weren't putting a performance in.
Daniel, for you, when did this change, and why do you think this has changed? So Darren's basically talking about an era of maybe black footballers and pros in general, but let's say black footballers for what we're talking about today. where they felt that, do you know what? Nah, not really seeing me if I'm not playing well. Versus also the commercial opportunities that exist for players now. Why do you think, and how do you think that's changed into the modern day, where you look at players now like Madueke, Saka, Eze, Dominic Calvert-Lewin? How do you think it's changed from then to now?
Yeah, I honestly think like it's so interesting hearing Darren speak about like the experiences of like him and his like black counterparts and teammates then, because I honestly feel like social media like changed the game completely.
Yeah, 100%.
Because not only because like the like marketing opportunities got more because of it, but it's just like players must be so much more visible now. Like after a loss, after a game, like they're still human beings. Like they might want to go for dinner with their family. They might want to see their friends who they haven't seen in weeks because they've been on the road and all that. And they go out to one place, their friends are like, oh, let's go to this next place. Next thing you know, the next day it's like, oh, like this player was spotted out at this restaurant like at 10 p.m. And again, it's like that player probably knows his schedule. He probably knows when he needs to sleep. He's probably stuck to his diet, but that one thing has been clipped on social media. It's gone viral, and like people don't really care about the truth that much anymore. So it's like, and again, like when we tie that back into like how black players are perceived, how people like often like black players are given less of leeway when it comes to these kind of things, it can be quite like damaging. And then on the other side as well, like maybe on a more positive note, with social media, it's just like it's really opened up like people like, for example, like Asamoah Gyan back in the day, or Kevin Prince Boateng, or like even Darren, like just in terms of like having all those interests in like maybe fashion or sneakers or whatever. Like now players can really like monetize that and do that while they're playing as well. They don't necessarily have to wait until their playing days are coming to an end or they're over. Like so, I think like that visibility means that firstly, like players sometimes maybe get the wrong end of the like people get the wrong end of the stick, but also players put themselves out there more because they're like, oh, there's money on the table to be made because of social media.
Do you know what's mad as well? I almost remember with the social media, and this is where it works well, because the first kind of time I remember when a black player came out and challenged how black players are viewed compared to white players was when Raheem Sterling. That was the first one where the one story was like
Phil Foden.
No, yeah, Phil Foden builds a house for his mum. It's like, oh, look what he's done. But then it was a black player saying, just got into the first team, but just spending all his money on a house. Exactly. And I remember him putting the two articles up. Yep. And I almost feel like the way that black footballers are viewed has never been the same since he did that. Like he almost made them accountable by going, well, hold on a second here. You're talking about the exact same story, but look at the headline for one and look at the headline for the other. And then maybe that opened up maybe some of the other journalists' eyes and goes, well, we can't report that way. Because that was the first time they'd been challenged. And the amount if you went in the comments, the amount of people going, do you know what? You're 100% spot on. This isn't right. So I think since then, we've now started to, well, people's public perception maybe, and even journalists have now viewed black footballers a little bit differently.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we owe it to those trailblazers of the modern era to push those boundaries and to ask those questions and to hold people accountable to the space where we've got now, whether it's us in the media or you as an ex-pro but in the media now, whether it's current players, whether it's the next crop of younger players coming through. Daniel, for you, when you look at the culture now, how powerful are the players now? How are they viewed as brands? From brands, should I say. How are they viewed from brands?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with you as well. They're definitely viewed as brands in their own right too. I think like the agency and like independence players have now, like both in terms of like in relation to their clubs and also in relation to the brands they work with is crazy. And again, like social media has changed the game completely because, I mean, like I think it's really interesting to bring up Raheem Sterling because when he was coming up, I guess it was still in like the early days of social media. It was like way less developed than it is now. But like again, you can point to a player like Raheem who's again, like had an incredible career, has won so much, seems like a really nice guy in general, family man, and like the perception and like the way he's been treated in the media over the years has been crazy. But I think he caught the tail end of that era where players were, especially black players, still at the mercy of like the tabloid papers. But now you like fast forward to a young player like Miles Lewis Skelly, who again is like super self-confident. He's swaggering, like he's incredible on the pitch. But also he's like not afraid to express himself even despite everything because of I guess like the protection and like the way you can own your channel and own your lines of communication with someone who has social media. So like he gets to control how people see him. Like he gets to dictate like, yeah, I'm like however old he is, like 18, 19, I'm going to go to Paris Fashion Week and walk in this runway show. Then I'm going to come back and go into preseason training and that's going to be fine because he can back up his performances. But also like he's in charge of like how people see him. Whereas like I go back to a time when like another Raheem Sterling example. I think like it was in England training before one of the big tournaments, and like someone took a picture of him and he had like a new like tattoo, and it was like a
Yeah, I
tattoo.
remember. Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I must have been like in my teens then. I was so mad because people were like calling him a gangster. Like some like there was some lobby group who said like, oh, this is why like perceptions of footballers are so dangerous because like look what he's promoting. But like no one did the research to check that it was like a tribute to his dad. Whereas like you also get like young players like Phil Foden, whose celebration is sometimes to do like the sign of a gun. I was making those links, and like he doesn't mean it maliciously, and nor did Raheem. But I just think like now you fast forward and look, I don't think the tabloid papers will be able to draw those kind of conclusions anymore because the player can just come out and be like, well, that's false.
They've
But
stopped it being acceptable, haven't they?
Yeah.
And I think like on a positive now is exactly it's so important while we're doing this to highlight things that we've seen as negatives and to highlight the journey that they've been through to now become positive or maybe alienated. And I think when you look at black culture now, right, and footballers, it's incredible actually with how powerful it is and how popular it is. Like it's seen as cool. Like I think Arsenal's probably one of the best examples of this. I say this as a Man United fan, yeah, and even Chelsea as well, but especially the London clubs, let's say, right? But Arsenal in particular, they're dropping kits for Carnival.
Yeah.
Like it's decked out in Jamaican colours. Do you understand what that's like to your average like English maybe demographic of fan that's like from nowhere near the Caribbean, but he or she sees their club embracing that. You know, some of the cultural collaborations they've had, how they interact with the people in and around North London and the businesses and stuff like that, versus the players. You got Declan Rice on videos on Arsenal shoots with Wretch.
Yeah.
singing scraps, bro. Yeah. Like, do you understand what's actually happening here? See Ivan Toney posting him up. He was singing a well-known dancehall song by an artist called Mad Cobra. Like, it's incredible to see that type of cultural sort of coming together and it be celebrated on a really high level. And them shirts are flying out of the shelves. Yeah. And then you encapsulate that into the football. You look at like what Nike have done with like Total 90. Like, that era, and that's not just a black culture, that just that era, course, like you said about that best golden era of bringing it back. And there's so many footballers now. When you see, I remember seeing Bukayo Saka sitting next to Kim Min Song at Paris Fashion Week or something like that. Yeah. And it was like, you know, for your old school, it's like sitting next to the Spurs guy, you can't be doing that. Yeah. But like most of it was like celebrating. Like, look at them, they're looking good, man.
Yeah, cool, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When Eze's
rivals,
out,
but look them together.
Right, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that it's so beautiful to see clubs, the new generation embrace that. Of course we want the tribalism in football. Of course we want that, the fiery rivals, and you don't want to be too pally-pally. Like, you know, when Klopp and Pep were too close, we're like, nah, that's not Fergie and Wenger, that's not what we want to see. But at the same time, culturally, as a movement, I think it's beautiful to see like the clubs really getting involved. Manchester United do it a lot with stuff that's synonymous to the culture in Manchester, etc. There's loads of clubs doing it.
Yeah, I think it's important though, and I think you have to tap into the community.
Yeah,
I think and as you said, that Arsenal are so good at doing that. I mean, the kits have just brought out the old JVC kit from back in the day. I remember having that kit as a kid.
Culturally appropriate.
But then even the way they use Ian Wright, who obviously was synonymous with that kit. I think it's so important, as you said there, in Arsenal, in their community, they do so much, and the likes of Declan Rice, as you said there, and that picture, I remember that picture of Son and Saka, and it just felt like, we understand, you're right, there probably are some fans out there that are thinking, what are they doing that for? But I think because of the perception and the two guys in terms of their mentality and how they are, I mean, Spurs, Son is probably one of the most well-liked footballers ever.
Yes.
For that, and Saka the same for Arsenal. Bringing them together almost force people's...
can't not like them.
They can't go, well, I don't really like this because he's nice and he's nice. You know what I mean? They couldn't really bat against it. And I think that's so important, not just from a black perspective, but because black people everyone needs allies. And I think that type of cultural picture, that type of image is one that young kids might look at and go, I like that.
Daniel, for you, whether it be America, because I know you're out there now, or British or world, what athlete do you look at, black athlete, do you look at as like a real trailblazer that you take inspiration from, whether that be football, NBA, baseball, American football, etc., boxing?
For me, I mean, I've loved seeing like the come up of Saka and then Miles Lewis-Skelly. But I mean, to give a different example, I don't know if you guys are familiar with an NBA player called Anthony Edwards.
Yep.
But
AE.
yeah, I feel like Yeah, I feel like in terms of everything we're talking about, like he epitomizes like everything that it means to be like a young, successful, empowered black athlete in 2025. And like the way he's like with the way he came into the league, like with his swagger, his self-confidence, like if there's anyone who can like trash talk and back it
And
up,
back it up, yeah, that's the key.
right? And like the way he's like worked with Adidas and he's got his own signature shoe and the way he's like transformed like the basketball shoe market and like he's really brought Adidas back from pretty much nowhere in basketball sneakers
Yeah,
to like having the like it was the sneaker of the AE1 was the sneaker of the year last year by a long way. And like so I think for me that's the epitome, just like someone who's so dominant and so good at their craft and so young but so self-confident and also can have an impact on other cultures outside basketball, like like the sneaker world and fashion and that kind of thing. So
yeah,
for me, like, I love any chance I get to watch him play.
Do you know what? I see before that, I would have gone LeBron.
yeah.
Because LeBron for such a long time, talk about like school
Still
for
doing
young,
it now?
for obviously the school,
Yeah.
the amount of work he does without people knowing. I mean, he's probably the one I looked at and thought he's done everything he can. He's used his image. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong, he's one of the greatest basketball players ever, but he hasn't just hid behind that. He's wanted to make himself available so people don't just see him as a basketball player. They almost see him as not a politician, but they look at him someone who's willing to fight the good fight and put his name on the line. So he's probably one I would look at and go, yeah, he's from day one.
Yeah.
He's been one I've gone, yeah.
We see, because there's so many in terms of, there's some that are like trailblazers because of the sheer ability they had and they're black.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Like Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, but then look what he's done in the training game. Look what he's done for fashion and culture.
Yeah.
He's
But
probably,
you don't hear him out there talking about it.
he's not really that.
That's the thing.
Exactly. He's quite quiet. He's quite reserved.
Yeah.
But what he's done for it's, I mean, some people don't even know Michael Jordan, the basketball player.
No, they just know the shoe.
Of a certain, they just know the shoe. So there's people like, but then there's people like, say, Tiger Woods. Do you know what I mean? Who's like, look how phenomenal he was for as long as he was, but it's less fashion, but more ability.
Yeah.
But look at someone like Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton, I think, and I'm not even an avid F1 follower or fan like that, but I know what he's achieved in the sport. I know how he's tried to push black people and black voices within the sport.
The boundaries.
And then when you get to the sort of the fashion side of it and pushing that, F1 wasn't ready for that.
No. The earrings, the braids.
The earrings, the bling, the braids, going out with a pussycat doll at one stage.
The private jet.
Do you know what I mean? Like that, it's unheard of. I think it's synonymous when we talk about rappers and singers and maybe actors, Michael B. Jordan and things like that.
Yeah.
It's what, but when we talk about sports people crossing over into societal things and being kind of more powerful than their sport, I think that's a really special thing for you, Darren. For those who don't know, if you don't know, I don't know where you've been, but this guy and his love for footwear, his shoe game is just ridiculous. Let's explore that a little bit more. Where did your love for trainers, or as the Americans call them, sneakers, where did that come from? Was it from other football players, or was it from younger than that? Like,
do you know what it was? It was early. I remember it used to be when my dad used to take me. I think it was Wembley Market. They weren't always real down there, man. No, but still, there was a particular shoe called Huarache.
Yes.
And we couldn't afford them. And I remember just looking at them every single time we'd go there. I'd look at them and just go, oh, I need them. So that was my real first, like, I need these. And then it went to, as I got a bit older, Reebok Classics.
Yeah. Oh,
and they started to bring out different colours of Reebok Classics. And then went into TNs. But it's only when I started to earn a bit more money, I'd think about, hold on, growing up, remember that shoe? And then it would just keep, in my mind, it'd be like, I need to get the Huaraches.
Yeah.
Then it was like, oh my goodness, the Classics, I need to get them. Then TNs. And then, of course, the big Jordan brand started to come along. And then it just exploded from there. And it was only when one of my friends, James Ellis, I can't even take the credit for it. He went, I think I was buying Louboutins at the time or something. And he said, or Pradas, I think it was Pradas. And he was wearing a pair of Air Max. And I was like, what are they? And he was like, you know about Air Max? I was like, no, what? And he bought me a book and he told me about the history and the culture.
Wow.
And from that, I just went crazy, man. And I'm talking, when I say crazy.
Was you addicted to buying shoes?
Yeah, man. I'm talking about, listen, 40 pairs a month was coming in. Bang, bang.
Whoa. 40 pairs a month.
That was at my height.
Where'd you keep them?
And this was before the delivery services, they would need a signature. So this is before they can't just leave them outside. So my other half had to keep going to the door, signing, getting frustrated, man, angry. But at the height, I could not get enough pairs, man. At one point, I had pretty much everything.
What about you, Daniel? Have you been into sneaker culture or fashion, the clothes? Like, have you had different periods where you're like, I'm just copying everything, every color, every hype, or like I'm going old school, I'm doing that, or I'm trying to not really have what everyone else has? Like, what sort of modes have you been in?
Yeah, for me, like, I mean, not as prolific as Darren.
We ain't got that type of 40 pairs a week, a month money.
I wish. But for me, like, I'm so big on like nostalgia at the moment, and just like I'm always trying to like find or like buy back like pairs of shoes from my childhood kind of thing. So like even before Nike just now brought back the T90 range, I was scouring the internet, like whatever website you can think of to find like, because I think when brands bring back shoes, it's always a bit different. They change a few things. It's not the same. And I love to find like the original. So like I love to go back and find like original Predators, original F50s. Like I've got a collection of T90s at home, just like that I wear sometimes. Some are like too nice and have to be on display for a bit. But yeah, for me, like I think just growing up at the time, like T90s hold such a special place. And like if you could get your hands on them, like even if it was a fake pair, like if you could get them, like you think you could jump faster, you think you could jump higher, you think you could score more goals just because you're wearing them. And like I think that's why I love sneakers, because or trainers, like you just get a certain feeling from them that you can't even describe. It's like the shoe will like literally make you feel like you can play better or like look better or whatever. So yeah, that's my connection to it. It's all about the nostalgia.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, for me, my love for shoes came from a really young age as well. And it usually starts, not to plead poverty, but it usually starts because you can't get them.
Yeah, because you can't afford
Do you know what I
them.
mean? You can't afford them. It's like, can I have that, mum? Can I have that? Nah,
No.
we can't, son. Like, you can't. So when I got into, I used to do like jobs around the house. I said, so if I wanted a pair of trainers, my dad would say, right, all right, you get half. I mean, it's his money, their money. But he said, right, you get half. Like, you got to do some jobs around the house. So when my mum and dad split, I said to my mum, how can I earn £1? How can I earn £2, £5, whatever? Put away the dishes, do something. So I'd save up my money. Then I'd go to my dad and say, right, I've got £55. Put the other half. I can get my 110s. Like, let's do this now. Yeah. So it started from that. And then when I got my first job, I was working in Next at the time, but then I just badly wanted to work in JD and Foot Locker. For obvious reasons. And then I got into there, and then that's when I started actually collecting
of course.
all the way through. And then it got a bit silly, and I had a few periods I'm like, can't keep doing this flex, man. Like,
you have periods like that, don't you?
And then I start back again. I'm like, oh, I'm starting to get a few more. So I've always loved trainers from a young age. One thing as well is haircuts. I remember I heard you tell Goldstein a story about getting like the brand stitched in, cut in to your, may as well been stitched.
Yeah, trust me.
Cut into your hair. Like that was a big thing of black culture back in the days. Like going to your barber and saying, bro, yeah, I want a number 2 skin fade, night tick on the back.
Yeah. So I had the night tick, and I used to have it when I was in. I'd get it done in London. No barbers were doing that in Cambridgeshire, trust me. So I'd get it in London, but then again, when my parents split, I'd go to London, see my dad at weekends, get the night tick put in, and then go back to Cambridgeshire. Now, obviously, in London, kids are like, oh my goodness, it's more accepted because obviously it's multicultural in London. So when I was going to school, West Thornton in Croydon, I'd go with a night tick, no problems. When I went to Cambridgeshire now, the first time I got it, the teacher was like, I'm not sure how you feel about this. So they were like, listen, your hair is making a little bit more of a statement. Not so much statement, but it's distracting the other kids because everyone's coming up to you looking at your hair. So
that's so crazy.
It's crazy.
So you're being put in a position as a young kid to be like, well, because you've got that's going to affect our learning.
Yeah.
So there's already like honestly, a negative connotation on that.
So they were like, so we don't mind it this time, it's fine. But if you have it done again, we're probably going to have to put you in detention for the day. Other kids, I was like, okay, cool. Obviously, me being me, hard-headed, went straight to London.
Good.
Just got it done again.
Yes.
Night tick. Got to school, first period, man. They just went, Darren, Ed Marston wants to see you. He was like, listen, Darren, we told you.
What was your mum like?
See, she weren't happy about it.
Yeah.
So she comes down to school, she was not happy about it because she was like, hold on, why can't he express himself? That's his haircut. But either way, I couldn't have it again, but I used to have the border. So when I couldn't have the night tick, I then had the border, which was all around the outside of my hairline, which was, so kids were looking at me going, wow. Like,
I'm looking at Harvey from So Solid.
Honestly.
Bro.
So yeah, but the night tick, and I remember in London, it was the night ticks, it was the palm tree. They were the two I can remember people used to have.
But I had feeler cut into the back of my head.
Big brand when I was a kid.
I had Adidas 3 stripes, and the barbers were skilled. They used to look exactly like the.
Yeah.
Listen, you might go to a Dodge and you go, I don't know if that's a night tick, bro. I don't know what that. It looks
pony.
Like. It looks like
pony.
Or Shaw.
Yeah.
Deodorant. Daniel, what about you? I mean, I can see you got kind of long locks there. I don't know if that's always been your style. So when you getting camera when you was younger, were you getting little night ticks put in or patterns, or did you have short hair?
Honestly, I like when I was younger, me and my younger brother obviously grew up Arsenal fans. Like my dad's a big Arsenal fan, and we used to have like massive big afros when we were kids. And one day he took us to the barbers, and I think one of us had said we want to look like Thierry Henry or something. And like my mum, when I got home, and both me and my brother had like ones all over, just like to the skull, to look like Thierry Henry. So like we had that. And then yeah, like as I grew up, I like started to have my hair a bit longer, get twisted up. Just because like I feel like yeah, as I was again, like you could see it in the Premier League as well. Like it just became more acceptable at the time for young black players to have longer hair, to have twists, to have locks. And then like I feel like I was growing up at that time as well. So I was like, yeah, I can do that too. But I honestly feel like it got way more acceptable after a certain point to have hair that was a bit more expressive as a guy. But especially like you can see it in the Premier League as well.
In the Premier League, I mean, let's have it right. There's some crazy hairstyles, you know, players bleaching their hair, growing their hair out, getting locks, you know, some real like cultural haircuts to the point where, mate, David Beckham had cane row, bro.
Yeah.
Andy Carroll.
Yeah.
Andy Carroll had cane row. Do you understand? Like,
Yeah.
didn't someone else had it? And Beckham went to meet Mandela. Yeah, cane row, bro.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Andy Carroll as well. Oh no, not Jamie Vardy. I think I might have got that wrong.
No, he did.
No, he did.
No, but
he did, didn't it? What did he have? China bumps or something? Craig Davids.
No, I think it was little, but it was back. I think it was back in the early Leicester days.
Did I make that up?
No, he didn't. He did,
didn't it?
Yeah, he did.
So
Vardy.
it's like you see these like where white players start to embrace this
culture.
black culture, and it's like it's a beautiful thing. And listen, some people can get offended and say, "Oh no, I don't know about that. You can't be having like that." But it just what it does show, whatever your opinion is on that. What it does show is how powerful black culture is and how much impact it has on the game.
Exactly. I mean, you spoke about Declan Rice being involved in it as well. And I think because football nowadays certainly is so multicultural, people coming from all over the globe, you almost have to respect it. And it's going to be part of you. There's going to be times I'm in the dressing room and someone's put certain music on and I don't like it. But because that's part of their culture, I've got to just...
So might have like the Hispanic players.
Or it might be like rock, heavy metal or something. And I'm like, this is not my genre. But because... we're all teammates, I'm going to respect what
was that like? Back then was it even Auxludes? Was it cassette boombox?
Yeah, it was a little bit, or CDs, bro, mini disc. It was a little bit mini disc.
Little mini disc, yeah. Who was on the buttons and what was the different managers you had? Did you ever have managers that were like, no, listen, get that rubbish off in my dressing room, not having that?
Oh, no, you know what? You'd have some managers that'd be like, listen, what is this? But because we're performing and winning games, it can't really say much.
Yeah.
But I remember the early days, it was very much heavy metal, like maybe music, like pop music that it's not part of my culture, but I had to respect it because they're my teammates. But as I got older,
you try and play.
Yeah, I mean, so I start scoring goals. Boy, my playlist is going on.
What are you playing? What sort of things are going on?
So I had a period where it was like old school soul music.
Yeah.
Then it was like hip hop, hard rap music. Like I'm talking about way back, so like Wu-Tang Clan, Jam Master Jay.
Yeah.
Who else would there have been? Naughty by Nature.
Yeah. Oh, proper
old school like hip hop,
like De La Soul maybe.
De La Soul, Rakim.
Yeah.
So that was me back in the day, and then fast forward, it got a bit. Then the old school garage came in, which obviously me being from London was a big, huge
especially
scene.
South.
Exactly, grime scene was massive. So then it was that. So I'd start putting that on people, and people were like, no. But you kind of had to. And then as I got older, you get the mixes now, Mixcloud, R&B mixes, soul mixes. So throughout my career, it's been a wholesome, like loads of music.
Yeah.
But you just got to respect it. That's the biggest thing I always found. You have to respect it because if I don't respect your music, you're not going to respect mine.
Yeah, absolutely. And Daniel, when you look at the clubs, to take it back to them in the current time, you look at some of the campaigns they have, or you just look at a match day. You look at some of the playlists they use at halftime or before kickoff, and it's like, you know, you're hearing Dave, you're hearing Burna Boy, you're hearing Central C, or you're hearing Future, or all these Travis Scott, or what it may be. Like, there's so much sort of, it goes hand in hand now, doesn't it, with like black music and sport.
100%. And like it's such a good example. The like when Arsenal signed Eze and like they used that song from Sampha, and I feel like like that was such a good representation of like how far like black culture and black music has come in terms of its entrance into like football. Because, and I even think like you can like dial in and look at the way like football clubs speak on social media, like the way their admins speak, like the captions they use, like all of that is a lot of like often like what is associated as like black language and black slang and that kind of thing. And like that's really like fully seeped into like how football teams like operate. And I guess it makes sense to an extent because so much of football culture, especially in the UK, like you look at the England team going back so many years, like it's very dominated by like black culture and black players, to be honest. And I mean, same if you look at the French team, for example, and I feel like it's been such a long time coming that like the teams and everything like that start to communicate a bit more like in a way that relates firstly to the players they have, but also to like a lot of the fans they have. And I think for so many years, like going to different football games in London, you'd hear like during the warm-up and everything pre-game, it's like kind of like rock music or like indie music, that kind of thing. But now it's a lot more, like you say, there's a lot more hip hop. There's
so much there.
And I feel like it's really like done a 360 in terms of like how Black culture and Black music is embraced in the way clubs operate and communicate with people.
It's become part of the norm. It really has. It's become part of the norm. It's become part of pop culture.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Black culture is part
Modern
of
day
pop
society.
culture, 100%. Guys, this has been an absolute blast, man. This has been some real powerful stuff, some real fun stuff, some real deep stuff as well. So it's been an absolute pleasure. That was the latest episode of the talkSPORT Daily Podcast Takeover. A big thanks to former Premier League striker Darren Bent and, of course, sports fashion writer Daniel Yaw-Miller. And thanks to you, of course, for listening. There'll be another one, a very special talkSPORT Daily Takeover at the same time next week, as myself and Benty will be delving into the influence of Black culture and, in particular, music on football.